A soldier's story. Love, deception, and the cost of trust. In the late 1990s, I was a 40-year-old U.S. Army major working at the Pentagon, serving as a military intelligence officer. I had already spent nearly a decade in the Army by then, most of it within a Special Forces unit, operating in high-pressure, shadowy corners of the world where trust was currency and doubt could mean death. At the time, I was in the middle of a painful separation, living alone and pending divorce from my now ex-wife. I wasn't the type to drown my sorrows at bars or try to meet women over cheap drinks and bad music. It never made sense to me, the odds, the atmosphere, the superficiality of it all. Instead, I turned to something new and curious. The internet. It was still the digital Wild West, and chat rooms were the watering holes of the web. I stumbled into a foreign chat room, lurking quietly for a while until I understood the rhythm of conversation and the dance of digital flirtation. That's when I met her. A high school teacher from Singapore. Quick-witted, funny, emotionally intelligent. Our banter flowed effortlessly, all in English, and she intrigued me from the start. For months we talked constantly. Morning, evening, sometimes in the middle of the night. She was clever, charming, and intellectually engaging. I still hadn't seen her photo. I didn't know her age. I barely knew what city she lived in. But the connection, real. I found out eventually that she was 24, and when she shared one of her recent lesson plans, I was blown away. It was thoughtful, precise, emotionally resonant, one of the best I'd ever read. She had a gift. A year after we met online, she finally sent a photo, and it stunned me. She was breathtaking, an Indian woman with smooth, dark skin and angular Aryan features that looked almost European. Slender like a fashion model, she had well-defined abs and a figure that was both athletic and feminine. Her breasts looked like large B cups, maybe smaller C's, and her bedroom eyes practically pulled you in. Her smile. It radiated warmth and mischief. I was hooked mind, body, and soul. Soon after, she offered to visit me. Every red flag from my intelligence background flared. It all seemed too good to be true. My gut said spy. Honey trap. Classic seduction operation. So I did what any former counterintelligence officer would do. I vetted her hard. I checked everything. Every detail she shared lined up. She was clean. So I said yes. She flew to Newark, and when I met her at the airport, it felt like a scene from a film. She walked down the terminal ramp and she was just stunning. Her smile, the way her hips moved, everything about her screamed sensuality. I'm 6 feet tall, and she stood around 5 feet 5 inches, but she filled the room. Kissed. We melted into each other. It was electric. That night we stopped in Clinton, New Jersey. We barely slept. The chemistry was immediate and overwhelming. She was funny, sharp, passionate, and generous. We spent the next few days together in Washington, D.C., wandering museums, driving down Skyline Drive, exploring the Shenandoah Valley. She was full of surprises. A young woman from the other side of the globe who somehow knew the music, culture, and political history of the 60s to the 90s. Nothing she did set off alarms. She seemed completely genuine. We talked about her moving in after returning briefly to Singapore. She agreed. She flew back, finalized things, and returned, this time to D.C. Life was good. But as always, good things rarely stay simple. A few months into domestic bliss, our apartment complex notified us we had to vacate. Condo conversions. We found a new place near a mosque in Falls Church, Virginia. I thought little of it. She was Muslim, it made sense. Then one day a man showed up outside our building. She pulled me away from the window and insisted I stay inside. Alarm bells rang in my head. Eventually, she went outside to speak with him. When she returned, her face was pale. It was her husband, a Singapore Airlines pilot. I was floored. Not just shocked, but betrayed, furious. And yet I stayed calm. We sat down and talked. She swore she'd divorce him. Said she'd go back to Singapore and make it official. I was angry. I should have thrown her out, but I didn't. Part of me still believed in her. She left, filed for divorce through a Sharia court. That detail unsettled me. Sharia law was a cultural system I didn't fully understand, and it raised my anxiety. She came back a few weeks later, and it was as though the storm had passed. For a while we found peace again. She wasn't working, so she spent time at a nearby Starbucks. One day she told me, "American men are so friendly, they always want to talk." I said, "They don't want to be friendly. They want to sleep with you." Weeks later she admitted I was right. But she insisted nothing ever happened. Eventually my 3 years at the Pentagon came to an end. At my farewell lunch she came with me. First time she met my coworkers. They were stunned. We moved to a new assignment in the Republic of Korea, ROK. I was the executive officer for a battalion there. That's when things began to unravel. She started having mental health issues. Sudden fits of rage. Hitting me. Kicking me while I drove. One night she tried to jump from a moving car. Another, the police pulled us over, someone had called them. To their surprise, she confirmed everything I said. Home things got worse. She became suicidal. I threw out every sharp object in the house. Finally I had to call the police. When they saw the bruises on my body, they arrested her. She was committed to the psychiatric ward at Newark Hospital. That night, a hurricane rolled in and flooded the area. But I'd promised I'd visit, so I drove through the storm. I saw water shooting out of manholes like fountains. I'd never seen anything like it. But I made it. She was scared, broken, and ready to accept help. Once she began her medication, the change was profound. Over the next few months, she rebuilt herself. And somehow, so did we. We married in a simple civil ceremony. My parents as witnesses. The Army reassigned me back to D.C., and I was picked up immediately by the G3, who had known me during my Haiti deployment. We worked on targeting strategies, navigating political roadblocks, and developing operations against high-value targets. 8 months before September 11th, I wrote a document, unclassified, using Osama bin Laden as a focal point. I knew what was coming, and then it happened. On September 12th, our project was fully funded. I was deployed again. Fort Benning, MacDill AFB, then the Middle East. My wife stayed behind, working on her master's in New Jersey. We spoke daily. But weekends became quiet. Her phone was off and off. I suspected something. Then came the embassy party. He was there, John. Charming, suave, and calculating. She was radiant that night. And he noticed. Turned out he was leading State Department efforts in her field of research. I saw it immediately, the body language, the tension, the sparks. Soon after, she told me. I had an affair with John. Just once, she said. I was gutted. I'd loved her, defended her, sacrificed for her. And she'd walked straight into the arms of the very man I warned her about. But she was remorseful. Devastated. And against every military-hardened instinct I had, I forgave her. I tried again. Through deployments, promotions, and painful memories, we held on. But that was the moment I understood the truth. Love is powerful, but trust, once broken, never fully heals. And sometimes the most dangerous battlefield is your own heart.